Week 12, video 2 in Pharmaceuticals and Politics and Policy is discussing medical marijuana. Medical marijuana refers to the use of the plant, its chemicals, such as CBD and THC, to treat various medical conditions. The marijuana plant actually contains 100 different chemicals called cannabinoids, which have different effects on different parts of the body. And it's used to treat a number of conditions, mostly chronic pain, cancer-related symptoms, especially the nausea. It can also treat multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, and other diseases. It's usually in the form of the dried leaves and flowers, oils, or capsules that are consumed by smoking, vaporizing, or ingesting. It's a topic of ongoing research and debate as to its effectiveness and safety. The legal status of medical marijuana varies by country and region, with some places allowing its use for medical purposes, while others prohibit it, while others allow it not only for medical use, but also recreational use. As I said, the political landscape varies from where you are. Some places are looking at legalization so that you're allowed to have medical marijuana, and there are frameworks in place to follow the cultivating and growing it, distributing, and use of the medical marijuana. Decriminalization, some places it's not fully legalized, but they're not going to throw you in jail, or it's not going to be an offense other than maybe a ticket if you are in possession of small amounts for personal use. And then some places will have prohibition where there can be criminal penalties if you are found to grow, possess, or distribute marijuana in any form. Public opinion, it varies, but there is growing support for the legalization of marijuana, especially for the treatment of medical issues. The political parties have different stances. There can be stances within parties. I mean, we think of the conservatives being against marijuana, but part of the conservative arm of the Republican Party are some libertarians, and libertarians think that you should just let people do what they want to do as long as it's not hurting anybody. So there is different outlooks even within the political parties. And then where it has been legalized, a lot of times there will be very strict regulations in place to ensure that it's used safely and responsible. You have to get permission to grow and cultivate marijuana, distribute it, etc. And they're wanting to have quality control in place rather than just people just selling the drug. And it's concerning right now because there is a concern that marijuana, which is not considered a dangerous drug, when it's being sold on the streets, may be cut with other drugs which are more dangerous. Early uses, ancient people used marijuana for its medicinal properties. It's been used not only as a medicine, but as a spiritual herb where you would reach a higher plane of understanding when you use it. Again, in ancient times, it says on the next slide, Greece and Rome also used it. It was used in the Middle Age, insomnia, inflammation, pain. So it has been used throughout history. And it wasn't really until the 20th century that it began to be criminalized and its use restricted. in some parts of the world. In the early 1900s, states began to pass laws and regulating the sale and use of marijuana, and it often targeted immigrants and minority groups who culturally used marijuana as part of their culture of treating pain and illness. A tax in 1937 was placed on marijuana, which it wasn't really a tax. It was a tax act, and that it made it a criminal offense to possess and sell marijuana. And then in the 30s and 40s, there was a campaign against marijuana known as the Reefer Madness era. And movies and media reports sensationalized what happened and made it appear that marijuana was a very dangerous drug that led to violence and insanity. And in the Controlled Substances Act of 1970, it classified marijuana as a Schedule I controlled substance. And that's the same classification for drugs like heroin and LSD, which made it illegal to do anything with marijuana in the United States. In the 80s and 90s, there was what they call the war on drugs, where they really tried to get rid of all drugs in this country, including marijuana. And they put harsh penalties on the possession, distribution, etc. And then states, despite federal prohibition, states began to legalize marijuana for medical use in the early 2000s and late 1990s, and that trend has just been accelerating. As of 2024, marijuana remained illegal under federal law. It still is at this point in 2025. But 46 states have legalized its use for medical or recreational purposes. It's an ongoing debate. I'm not going to go through them here, but there are political ideologies in medical marijuana. Generally, I'm not going to read from the slides, but generally liberal people think that medical marijuana is important and support it. Conservatives may support medical marijuana legalization, but have concerns about potential abuse. So when it really want to have strong regulatory prohibitions placed on it so that it's not used illicitly. And as I said, libertarians say it's as long as you're not hurting anybody, marijuana should be legal. And then independents, it reigns. Some groups align with the more liberal or the conservative, but usually independents are more either of the liberal or libertarian stance on the use of medical marijuana, but maybe conservative when they want to view regulation and oversight so that it's not abused. And so views in our country are far-ranging, and it will be interesting as we're in a more conservative era to see what happens with the use of medical marijuana. You can read the slides for the nitty-gritty, but basically there is support for legislation legalizing medical marijuana. There is bipartisan support, but there is a generational divide, with younger Americans more supportive and more older Americans having concerns about the legalization. Public opinion, again, related to medical marijuana, there's a focus on the medical benefits. They believe that, especially when you think about people with cancer and anorexia, if the medical benefits of marijuana are such that they will make people's lives better, then public opinion says, by all means, we should allow the use of medical marijuana. the fact that a growing number of states have legalized it has contributed to the shift in public opinion, or the shift in public opinion led the states to legalize marijuana, as often happens in public policy. And there is a strong desire that if we have medical marijuana, there is regulation and oversight so there is not abuse. And basically, they're saying if it's medical marijuana, it should have the same regulatory standards as other medications. There have been challenges. The big ones, I mean, of course, legalization and regulation are a challenge because the variance from state to state. But there is a lack of research. We need to do research on the efficacy of marijuana as a treatment. There's still stigma and negative perception. And access and availability varies. I mean, if we're going to have medical marijuana, we need to make sure the people that can benefit from it are able to receive it. Quality control and safety has been an issue. You want to make sure that there are not contaminants, that it's not cut with any other drug. You want to make sure that it's grown in a healthy manner. There needs to be education of healthcare providers on using it effectively, and also patient education. And a big problem with medical marijuana is the challenge is it's conflicting with federal law. If your state allows you to either have medical or recreational marijuana, and since the federal law prohibits it, for instance, in Colorado, where both recreational and medical marijuana have been legal, you can't they can't use the whole finance thing, because banks are federally regulated. So, and credit card companies across states, it can be very challenging how businesses operate because of the federal ban, even though they're allowed to sell in their state. I've included some policy comparisons between the United States and some other country for you to read. We, even though it's, as we said here, federally it's illegal, the states are making it legal. Canada, it's been legalized since 2001, and they have a regulatory program. And in 2018, recreational marijuana was also approved. Germany, 2017, they legalized it for medical use. Israel has a long history of use. The Netherlands has a policy of tolerance. Even though it's illegal, they don't do anything about it if people use marijuana generally. Uruguay legalized recreational marijuana in 2013. Australia legalized medical marijuana in 2016. It's just different countries have different policies. And when it comes to drugs use, things that can be considered drugs or illicit drugs or any of those types of substances, the United States in the 20th century took a really hard stance against anything they thought could be an abused drug. So our country is more conservative when it comes to medical or anything to do with marijuana. Future outlook, although this may change, there is a thought that legalization will expand, especially for medical marijuana, that we will have better regulatory frameworks established, and that it will actually be integrated into healthcare systems, the use of medical marijuana, including education and training for providers and for patients. It will be offered as a treatment option. What needs to continue is research and innovation, seeing how this can be used, how medical marijuana, if it is efficacious, particularly in pain control and nausea control, how can we do research on that to prove that? International collaboration, we may see sharing of best practices in regards to regulation and research. And challenges and controversies are going to continue. But it's likely that we will see ebbs and flows. I'm not sure. I haven't seen a strong stance in our current conservative government related to rolling back, trying to get the states to lift the legalization of medical marijuana. I haven't seen any movement towards having a federal legalization policy established, but those are the things that we will look for in the future of medical marijuana to treat our patients.